forms of dance enhance belly dance? I think absolutely they can, both in terms of improving your technique and in terms of increasing your vocabulary, and maybe even just, increasing your vision of the world and of what dance can be. I do have a little bit of a warning on this, though. I think there are two factors that need to be considered. One of these factors is how well are you being taught this secondary form of dance? Is it coming from a good qualified teacher? And how well is the dancer herself taking in this information of the secondary dance form, and to what degree can it be subjugated in performance so that it is supporting the belly dance performance? I'm going to use ballet as an example because that's kind of like, the grand priestess of dance, and the beautiful qualities that are hallmarks of ballet, with the wonderful lifted carriage and clean lines of the hands and legs, the perfectly positioned feet. When these are brought into belly dance, they can be wonderful. And I know some dancers where, I'll just watch their feet. They're so gorgeous, they can tell the whole story with those perfectly positioned feet. And they have clearly taken their ballet training, mixed it with the belly dance, and have come up with something very, very beautiful. But I've also seen dancers that have had a lot of ballet training, and they have those clean lines and that lovely lifted carriage and those beautiful feet. But when it comes time to do the hallmark movements of belly dance, the undulations, the isolations, the really snaky movements through the torso, it doesn't work out so well. And I think it's because they're so locked in and so highly trained in keeping from like the shoulder to the hip moving as one block, they can't unlock it. And so those movements that you need to do if you're going to call it belly dance, they don't execute them so well. And so that to me is the cautionary part here. Absolutely other dance forms can help you, but how well have you learned them, and are you putting them in support of belly dance and not overriding it? For me personally, the dance form that has most helped my belly dancing, and it's kind of funny, it's pole dancing. Several of my mentors who actually watched me perform after, I would say, about a year and a half of pole dancing were like totally amazed, and they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much this has changed how you dance. And it might not be what you would be thinking of as something that would improve me, but I feel like it's a combination of the sheer physicality of what it takes to do pole dance, with the added strength and the added flexibility training that have put my body in a different place than where it was before. And it's just so hard to do it, and certain technical things of locking your shoulders down and developing all this strength and thinking of these things while, as one of my pole dance instructors says, while you're walking around that pole trying to look pretty and graceful, it's incredibly hard. And somehow going to belly dance after doing pole, it seemed a bit easier to me. Certain things that had been hard before, well, they were a lot easier than trying to do it on the pole. And crazy as it might sound, pole dancing has actually improved my belly dance noticeably.
I would say for classical belly dance, I would highly recommend ballroom dance, Latin, and jazz. Certainly for tribal belly dance, various forms of hip hop are great, as well as some forms of martial arts will be fantastic. The big question is how exactly this cross-training works. How does it help you to improve your dance? One thing that definitely works is the fact that, for instance, if you do ballroom or Latin or jazz, that will improve your nimbleness in your footwork or the steadiness of your turns, to the extent that you will be much, much better in those elements in belly dance. The other thing is borrowing various elements from other dance forms to include them in your actual dance style, the stylings or the actual dance moves. You can certainly be successful at this, but you really need to know what you're doing, because first of all, if your core expertise is belly dance, it's highly unlikely that your expertise in other dance forms will be on the same level. And I believe in staying true to your core expertise. You don't want to take something beautiful where you're really a star level and dilute it with mediocre performance that you deliver in other dance forms. The idea that dance is highly specialized, the movement in general is highly specialized. You really don't see a person who will be the same star spectacular level in a number of dance forms. Usually it's just one. In the rest, the person may be, you know, just fine or good or mediocre and okay. So you don't want to dilute your core expertise with fusion elements that you take from other dance forms where you're less trained. Another thing is the actual fusing. If you take something like footwork from jazz or ballroom and put fabulous belly dance hip work on it, or graceful arms, or other elements that we have in belly dance, this will certainly work if you do it really expertly. But what you often see is just basically taking the whole move from another dance form and introducing them in your belly dance. Examples. Classic belly dance is often fused, for instance, with modern dance. I don't think it's a really great idea, because what you see is a beautiful and skilled dancer gracefully executing at an incredibly high level of technique a belly dance, a sequence of belly dance steps, and then she goes into elements of modern dance where she is definitely not your modern dancer style level, and it's inexpertly inserted inside the texture of her dance. It breaks the texture of her dance. She is moving much heavier and not as graceful, not as flawless as a professional modern dancer would. It is jarring to the eye. I don't want to see this. It just, you know, upsets me as a member of audience. It also upsets me if, as a tribal dancer, you include whole sequences of, for instance, hip-hop moves in your performance without this deep fusion work. When you see a person executing fantastic sequence of belly dance, tribal dance, isolations and moves, and then all of a sudden, here comes an inexpertly, clumsily inserted there Michael Jackson travel step. Again, I feel disappointed not only at kind of obvious and use of something, at an obvious quotation, but also at the fact that the dancer who is performing it doesn't have the muscular control and the training in the hip hop dance form that she has in belly dance. Again, it's dilution of her core expertise. So I think we really need to be careful on this front.
Cross-training in other dance forms? For me, certainly cross-training has been extremely valuable. When I was first studying belly dance, the majority of what was available was traditional belly dance taught in traditional format, by which I mean like follow along. People call it follow the bouncing butt. It's a format that is usually taught by someone who comes from more of an improvisational tradition, who is more of an instinctual dancer, and the class is that she goes to the front, she does something, and you go with it. You follow, you get caught up in the flow of the whole thing. This format, I think, is very good for people who are primarily interested in belly dance as a cultural expression, because you learn, as a Westerner in this format, you learn the dance, but you also learn a piece of the culture, because you have this entrance into this culture, into this way of absorbing knowledge through not an analytical framework, like a non-Western way of approaching knowledge. But for me, right from the very outset, I knew that the thing that I really wanted from dance was very technical dancing, very precise dancing. And had traditional format classes only been available to me, I never would have been able to get there. What I needed was to step outside of belly dance and take tools from Western dance. Cross-training did also give me vocabulary that I put into my own dancing, but the thing that really has been important to me is not so much the vocabulary, but the analytical toolkit, this sort of Western pedagogical model of how dance is presented, breaking dance down into its smallest components, and then very precisely defining the placement of those components, drilling with that precise placement to make everything repeatable every single time, compiling those components into greater movements, like a model of building from a foundation, building from the ground up. So 10 or 20 years ago, I would have recommended that anyone else do the same, but now, if there were like an alternate universe where I were only just now starting belly dance, but in the alternate universe me had also made all of the instructional DVDs that I've already made, I could just buy my own instructional DVDs, and then I wouldn't need to cross-train anymore. So I'm not saying that my own DVDs obviate all cross-training for everyone, but what I am saying is that because of the combined legacy of many people working within the discipline, and because of the way that information is available now, like the way that it's available and also the way it facilitates exchange among people in the discipline, there is great availability of Western format belly dance education there for people who want it. And so the people who might have benefited from cross-training before, they might benefit now for other reasons, but they wouldn't benefit from it the same way that I would. So if someone is having trouble with something like footwork, I would never tell them to go to a ballet class or a jazz class, or, I mean, they could, but the first thing that I would recommend would be to just try a different belly dance class, to go and find a belly dance teacher who is gifted at doing the explanation or the breakdown or the drilling or whatever that person is missing from their other belly dance education. I think there is a persistent idea that ballet has some sort of monopoly on precision in lyrical movement, and that if you see a belly dancer and she happens to be moving in a lyrical way but graceful and precise with very defined placement and lifted carriage and extended limbs, that she somehow that's not quite real belly dance, that represents some sort of borrowing from ballet, or it's ballet fusion. And I mean, if you're doing modern Egyptian, there is Western influence, there was a ballet borrowing, but I don't think that what is happening now necessarily represents anything other than just evolution within the dance form itself. If, for instance, if you look at ballet, if you compare contemporary ballet to ballet from 50 years ago, the level of contemporary ballet is spectacular. Compared to what people were doing 50 years ago, the things that ballerinas can do today with, 6 o'clock extensions, it's not because contemporary ballet is fusion, it's just because that's how the form has evolved. That's how it's become more sophisticated internally. With sports, the same thing is true. Like if you look at track and field or gymnastics, whatever, even compared to 20 years ago, the kinds of scores and times and accomplishments that are routine today make things that happened 20 years ago look, like nothing. So, of course, this is true in belly dance as well. We inspire one another, we compete with one another, we build on one another's accomplishments, and we have sophistication in our form that's just a result of this natural evolution. So I do really resent when people give credit to ballet when they should be giving credit just to belly dancers, to the independent innovations of belly dancers within the form itself. So back to cross-training. If somebody wants to cross-train, yeah, of course they should. You should go and study whatever you're interested in. But if you just have some kind of hole in your dance education, if you feel that can only be filled by cross-training, then belly dance, I think, needs to step up and needs to address that. I don't mean to malign the traditional format at all, and I don't mean to suggest that it needs to be, replaced or updated or changed or anything. It's fine, it's good as its own thing. In addition to that, though, we are now a mature, robust enough form that we should be able to turn out complete dancers on our own. We should be able to turn out dancers who are versatile and intentional and well-rounded and can adapt to the needs of various choreographers, various different styles. If that's not happening in your community, honestly, I think you need to ask more from your teachers. And if that's not working, yeah, maybe you need to cross-train. If then you do, I would encourage you to teach then in a belly dance context, what you have learned, to bring that back and put that into belly dance. We are there in some places, in some areas of the country. The level is there, and it will be there everywhere soon, I hope, or at least I would like to encourage people to take us in that direction.
I think studying other dance forms is extremely important. It helps broaden your whole sense of movement and where it comes from, and approaching it from different ways. So maybe your belly dance teacher isn't teaching the full breadth and understanding of where certain moves come from. And if you take modern or ballet or jazz or even yoga, finding really proper structure in some base forms of movement and really solidifying core things, bringing in different kinds of feelings. And I don't think there's any one, oh, well, if you take this other dance form, it's going to be great for you. I think it's really important to find dance forms that really speak to you, and in that way, those things fuse into who you are and come out naturally when you're dancing with belly dance. Because really, belly dance is so beautiful in the way that it really expresses your individuality, and that's going to come out as you're taking in all these other dance forms. Salsa, ballroom, whatever, all of that's going to enhance and make you unique and give you your own voice. So I think definitely the more dance, the more movement that you can have in your life is so important.